This might actually be as close to perfect as a modern Counter-Strike game can be.
How much boost?
Like you've never seen before.
Finally, I was able to get some time in the Counter-Strike 2 limited test beta. Now, I'm an ex-pro Counter-Strike player that comes from games like Counter-Strike 1.6 and Counter-Strike Source. And while on the surface it looks like Counter-Strike 2 is just a reskin of Counter-Strike Global Offensive, it doesn't take long to realize this is an entirely new game, with very different mechanics. For example, here you can see me using the P2000, and that is because the USP is nowhere near as accurate and reliable as it is in CSGO. Now, I should mention I was also doing latency testing because I was only going to be able to use this account for one day, so you can see that I am using different resolutions throughout this game as well as all the others. I believe in this game I was using a resolution of 800 by 600, which is what I actually used back in the day when I was pro. Yes, the days before 1920 by 1080 being considered native resolution. Now, there are many big improvements in Counter-Strike 2, but the first two that come to mind are them adding Reflex Low Latency mode and the movement changes. Now, Reflex Low Latency mode pretty much optimizes your computer for the lowest possible input latency without you having to do anything except turn it on. This is especially nice when it comes to mouse tracking input because it feels like you can actually aim on any individual pixel with ease. Whereas in Counter-Strike Global Offensive, you always felt like you were a couple frames behind. Which brings us to the second part of this, the movement. In Counter-Strike Global Offensive, it was an AD-AD spam fest, where the game focused more on your movement and trying to dodge your opponent than out-aim them. This is in high contrast to the legacy Counter-Strike games like Counter-Strike 1.6, CZ, and Source. In those games, you had slower acceleration and deceleration times. Now, of course, when CSGO first came out and the pro scene switched over, there was a lot of pushback against this movement. Check out this ESEA video for reference.
Hi guys, I'm Godfrey and with me is Murdoch.
Hey everybody.
What you're looking at now is the different values and the graph we've made with Micron's assistant. Murdoch, why don't you tell us some more about what we're looking at?
Sure man. So in this graphic we see the acceleration curve of all the three games. On the left side we have units, and on the bottom the amount of frames it took us to get there. Yeah, in Global Offensive you don't have as much wall banging as in 1.6. Both the hitboxes and scale of the maps are smaller, so the changes to these mechanics justify the need for adjusted movement model. Regarding the issues with this movement model, people found ways to exploit it. We've seen it with the AD-AD, and we've seen it with people peeking in and out of cover while pre-firing. And you can't really do anything about it because of how wall banging and tagging are implemented in the game, so it's just more effective to also keep moving and peeking.
As things are now, it's less effective to hold angles and play passively than it is to be aggressive. And this goes against what we define as being Counter-Strike. We have to remember, Counter-Strike is a tactical shooter, not a fast-paced shooter. With our slight adjustments, you will still be able to shoulder peek, however not exploit it. Holding angles will be more viable. Also, tagging will seem increased, however we want to point out that tagging has not been touched. It is only the acceleration that has been changed. As the game becomes slightly slower, a more strategic approach is required and is now more efficient than before. If you wish to be aggressive, it is still possible, but only pays off in certain scenarios as opposed to the majority of scenarios, just like it used to be in Counter-Strike, making the game more balanced, more competitive, and less biased.
And although these movement values aren't very visible, you can feel every change when playing the game, so we recommend everyone to try this.
Now, at the time, these proposed movement values were supported by an overwhelming majority. But regardless of that, and a big organization like ESEA trying to push this, we did not get any cooperation from Valve. Now, the good news for you CSGO movement players out there is that the movement remains fairly similar to CSGO. Well, at least it's still closer to CSGO than it is to legacy Counter-Strike, but the acceleration does seem to have been slightly slowed. The best way to explain it is it kind of feels like you have a little extra weight on your character. And I feel like this is a really good compromise for legacy Counter-Strike players as well as Valorant players. So I could definitely see Valve sticking with this movement scheme. And personally, I hope they do because I really hate that AD-AD spam.
Why can't I pick it up?
This is the most fun I've had rifling since Counter-Strike Source. Which brings us to the next thing. Registry feels amazing. If you have a rifle and you shoot someone in the head, this tick list system counts it as a headshot, which is incredible coming from CSGO, where it felt like bullets would just go right through people. And headshots are just so satisfying. But one area I did struggle with is opping. CSGO already made several nerfs in movement with the AWP. With the slight additional nerf to movement in CS2, it's going to be very difficult to adapt to. I almost feel like they should buff the scope speed change back to what it was in Counter-Strike Source in 1.6, but given I am a Source in 1.6 player, that's pretty expected. I'd be curious to see if Ops can remain as dominant in tournament play. Moving down the line, we have submachine guns, which feel amazing, but rifles are still better at range. Which is how it should be, and it makes it feel very well balanced. Pistols, however, can still be a little bit annoying. Since the movement speed is still so high, you still get a lot of AD/AD when you're fighting with them. And truth be told, I feel like the CT pistols are a little bit too inaccurate, whereas the Glock is insanely accurate compared to the USP and P2000. And the Tech 9's on a completely another level with its accuracy, being better than every other pistol. Meanwhile, the 5.7 seems completely pointless as it has about the same accuracy as the P250. Now, the good news is, even though the movement speed with the pistols is quite high, tagging does seem to have been either increased or maybe it just seems increased because of the slower acceleration speeds, which seems to force players to fight when getting caught out rather than exploiting the movement to get away. Another mechanic that I personally love. It really makes Counter-Strike feel more like legacy Counter-Strike and what I identify as Counter-Strike than CSGO. Alright, so now let's talk about the utility. Smokes have been completely revamped. Now you can shoot through them and make little holes on the sides, and you can actually blow up the entire smoke with a nade. But the smoke will come back after about 4 seconds. Now to compensate for this, smokes last a little bit longer. Also, CTs have different colored smokes than terrorists, but how much did it actually change gameplay? Honestly, not much, but I imagine as the game is out longer and people get used to the new smokes, it'll change more and more. Personally, I feel like the smokes last just a little bit too long now, but it's nice not fearing that everything's a one-way like it was in CSGO. Here's a great example of a kill I got because of a nade blowing away a smoke. Overall, it seems to be a really fun new dynamic and I can't wait to get better at using it. But that's not all. The visibility on nade debris and Molotovs has gotten much better. I absolutely love that the visibility in this game overall has just improved immensely. Flashbangs seem a little bit more powerful, especially because of how loud they are in your ears. It's nowhere near as bad as Counter-Strike Source, and overall, I don't really think it's going to impact the game too much, though I feel a little bit more confident using them, knowing that it affects their hearing as much as it does. Next up, let's talk about the graphics. They are definitely not as impressive as I was hoping for. But I can definitely understand why they decided to go this route to make it so that it's not overly stressful for computers. That being said, I am a little bit disappointed that a lot of the maps aren't going to get full remakes like Overpass did. Now I know it's still in the limited beta phase and there's only one map we can play. A lot of people are complaining that it's only Dust 2. Of course, that's my favorite map, so I got no problems with that. And even if it was any other map, that wouldn't be a big deal to me. Back in my pro days, we used to play our worst map over and over again every day for an entire month to get good at it. Overall, I absolutely loved my short experience with Counter-Strike 2 and can't wait to actually get it on my account and be able to play it. Counter-Strike 2's future looks bright and I prefer these mechanics to CSGO, so I think I'm actually going to enjoy it more. I hope you guys enjoyed this video and can't wait for you all to get access to CS2 as well.